Welcome, everyone. Welcome to leveraging our new national large group, Ivy Live, for your local ministry. I'm going to just give you a few thoughts as we go through together. So first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jamie Latipo, and I work for the Evangelism Department. I'm the Associate Director. This is my family, and actually I have a short little video to show you of my son this morning. We just moved into a new apartment, and his favorite thing is riding the elevator. In fact, every morning he's just right up next to the elevator so that we can go down. So hope you enjoyed that. So today, even though we're talking about how do we help mobilize our local ministries through Ivy Live, I just wanted to frame our call with saying we're really about world changers and conversion communities. So this is a little 2x2 that the Discipleship and Growth Department and the Evangelism Department have put on together. So we like to say that if a community is low on discipleship and growth and low in evangelism, that this is a community that has passive faith and is a social club. And if you just increase the temperature on discipleship and growth, then you really get a community that is an arrogant holy huddle and filled with Pharisees. But if you just increase the temperature in terms of evangelism, you get communities that are flash in the pan and false prophets. That really together what we're motivated for is high discipleship and growth, high evangelism, that we would see world changers and conversion communities. So even as we talk about how do we strategically use Ivy Live, we're not just talking about numbers, we're not just talking about wanting to turn up the temperature on growth, but actually we want to see just a great integration of discipleship, growth, and evangelism, that our communities would thrive and produce world changers. So I just want to give that disclaimer right away. All right, so here I'm going to tell a little story. Before I moved a couple weeks ago, I lived near Kansas City, and we saw the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl this year, and it was incredibly exciting, but honestly, that game was not what I expected, right? The Chiefs come in and they're playing their normal game, and then kind of in the middle, it seemed like they lost it. They were playing badly, they were being scored on. I really thought they were going to lose. And at the very last minute, in the last quarter, things seemed to really turn around, and not only were they able to catch up, but they were able to go ahead and win, and to win more than just by a little inch. They did incredible. And so I think this is actually a metaphor for us right now, right? We've been playing the game. We've been playing our typical game, doing ministry all year long. Then the coronavirus happened, and it's like the bottom fell out. And we're trying to figure out what is ministry now. But now, even in the last few weeks that we have, I wonder if the Lord is going to give us just a new surge of spiritual vitality, of connectedness and community, and of fresh faith. I wonder if God will do a miracle for us, and that we would look back and say, this last quarter was actually incredible and transformational for us. That's my hope and my prayer. I kind of think that right now we are in NSO. And normally I wouldn't pick April to be NSO, and I'm sure you wouldn't either, but we are literally seeing all of students trying to figure out where do they belong, how will they connect. And in that way, it reminds me a lot of our typical NSO. And a scripture that I think really helps to connect this is the feeding of the 5,000. So I took just excerpts from Mark 6, right, where we see the apostles gathered around Jesus, and they reported all that he had done, all that they had done and taught. So Jesus had sent them out. They've been doing good work, and they've come back, and they're sharing with Jesus, and he says, okay, let's go away and get a chance to rest. And when they've gone away, then they actually find this giant crowd, and Jesus says, oh my goodness, they're like sheep without a shepherd. And it's time to give them something to eat. The disciples, bewildered, say, well, why don't we just let them go to the surrounding villages and let them buy something to eat? But Jesus says, you give them something to eat. and they give him their 5 loaves and 2 fish, and Jesus does a miracle. We're all really familiar with this story. Um, some of us feel like we barely have 5 loaves and 2 fishes, right? We might only have a few weeks left of school. We know we have 4 Ivy Lives coming up, but we just have 4. But let's offer Jesus our 4 weeks. Let's offer Jesus our little bit and see what miracle he might do. I just want to be really clear. What I'm not saying is that we should just dive in and work harder and focus on ministry to our detriment. We are in the midst of crisis and in the midst of dealing with grief and sickness and all sorts of things. Like, we have some really real things that we're dealing with in the midst of the coronavirus. And so what I'm not saying is work more. What I am saying is let's offer God our little bit. Let's offer God our few weeks, our few hours. Let's give it to him and see what he can do with it. What I am saying is let's be faithful. Let's be faithful. Let's be like the disciples. And even if there's something in us that we just have to say, okay, because I love you, Jesus, I will trust you with what little I have. Let's trust Jesus and be a part of the miracle that he might want to do in our midst. All right. So with that, let's talk about making the most of Ivy Life. I think there are 3 things that we need to do to make the most of Ivy Life. First is invite networks specifically and broadly, right? The second is host great after parties or pre-parties, but I'm thinking after parties, especially for undergrads, and then ask boldly. And so let me tell you a little bit about what I mean. So first is invitations. We should mobilize our students. If you're an area director, mobilize our staff, our alumni, to make network maps and think about who do they specifically want to invite to Ivy Live and to our after parties. Like, who are they going to text? Who are they going to call? And then how can they invite broadly? And you can actually do this really, really creatively and really strategically by creating some great invitations that students can share and create more traffic as they strategically share each other's invitations, kind of like passing out flyers and getting them well trafficked throughout social media. The second thing is just having a great after party. So I'm gonna quick tab over and let me show you something that we're working on. We are working on just an example of how you might do a 30-minute after party. So your goals are helping to follow up with the large group that everyone just experienced together. Second goal is meet and bond with new people. That's why it's really important that your invitation is not just to Ivy Live, but also to your after party. And then secondly, it's a great place to ask boldly, how do you want to get connected, and to help people actually get connected into our small groups, or to mobilize students to start something new, or to get faculty and volunteers and alumni into ministry, into mission. And you get to be creative about what you actually want to ask them for. Let me just highlight some things about our example. So the first thing is it takes a little bit of prep beforehand. You'll want to ask your student leaders, your faculty leaders to be ready to run a breakout room. Be ready to welcome new folks and be ready to welcome old InterVarsity friends as well. Another note is even as we're leading these after parties, we will sometimes have folks that are not connected to our chapter. And that's totally okay. You might end up with some alumni in an undergrad after party. You might have a couple high school students. You may have friends of students that go to other universities. And so in some ways, some of the walls that typically defined our chapters are a little bit more fluid right now. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, but it's totally okay. Welcome our new friends and welcome our old friends. And that's what they should be prepared to do. Another thing I want to point out is that as your Zoom groups grow beyond 4 people, it becomes harder for people to talk to one another. And you'll notice that people will start muting themselves just out of courtesy, right? That's good online protocol. So you'll want to use breakout rooms to give people permission to actually talk with each other and process and bond. And so just right away in the beginning, after you welcome, I would suggest sending people into a breakout room and have them introduce one another, talk about how they got connected to Ivy Live and to your after party, and then ask a simple icebreaker question, like a would you rather. Like, would you rather always have a song stuck in your head or always have an itch you can't reach? Just something that's fun and lighthearted and helps facilitate some bonding so that they can share more openly later in the evening. So then once you bring people back and you kind of reorient, like here's who we are, this is who InterVarsity is, this is who I am, share honestly and vulnerably, if you can, about what God is speaking to you through the large group you just experienced. You can send them back into breakouts to discuss some general debrief questions that I have listed here and a specific question that you would like them to ask based on the large group that you just discussed. And hopefully, as we work together, we'll have some templates for you, including some specific questions that our speakers, based on our speakers' talks. So you can have them share in breakouts, and you can also have them post in a Google Doc. So it makes it easier for you as a staff to follow up with students, or you as a staff director to follow up with alumni or volunteers based on how they're responding to the large group and what God is calling them to do. Then lastly, you'll do some basic announcements, and this is where you get to ask. What do you want them to do? Do you want to file people into your small groups? Do you want to help them get connected that way? Do you want to ask people to start something new? Do you want to help people get to webinars you're offering? This is the place for you to highlight the best way for people to get involved in your ministry these last few weeks and get them to sign up. And one trick I would suggest is not just have it be a big sign up, but send them back into breakouts to talk about what they would like to do and to have the small group leader help facilitate them actually signing up and give personal invitations to join them, the student leader, in whatever they are doing this next week. And that's it. You could close, you could offer to play a game and just facilitate some more bonding, but 30 minutes to help people process the large group, get acquainted with you and your chapter, and be mobilized in some way. And you can think about this on the chapter level or an area level. Awesome. So you just saw my example of the after party. Why don't you just take a minute and think for a moment to yourself, what do you like about this after party strategy? And what would you want to mobilize your students, your faculty, alumni, or volunteers to do in your ministry? You can be as creative as you like. Maybe it's getting people into small groups. Maybe it's getting volunteers to call your student leaders and offer to pray for them. Maybe it's getting alumni to start giving as you're figuring out what this new future is. Be as creative as you like. In all honesty, there's probably some things that might be getting in the way of being able to do this in just one short week. So Ivy Live starts right after Easter, that Friday after Easter, and we have 4 weeks. So think a little bit about what might be preventing you from being able to quickly mobilize your students and faculty to invite and to host an after party, and what momentum do you have that's helping you? So it helps to kind of think about what you're facing so you can make a strategy about how do you minimize the barriers and maximize the momentum. So just take a few minutes right now to do that. Awesome. So let's get practical with just a couple of tips. So the first is create an example of invitations. So try and create an invitation that's intriguing, that has something honest. So this is a little bit of a testimony, like how are you being met by God in the midst of Ivy Live? And something that clearly invites to Ivy Live and your after party or pre-party. The second thing is use a minute by minute. It makes running a Zoom room so much easier when you've already thought about what content are you giving before a breakout room? How are you collecting what people are thinking? Are you using a Google Doc? Or are your student leaders just paying attention in their breakout rooms? So use a minute by minute, think about where you want to put in breakout rooms, and then get ready to help people sign up. Are they doing that on a Google Doc? Are they using a form? How will you help your students do that? All right, so take a next step. Sit down and maybe write an invitation example that you would like your students or your staff to use to invite to your after party into Ivy Live, or text a partner, text a student or faculty partner or a staff partner to get them helping you make a plan. Awesome. We would love to help you use Ivy Live to the best of your abilities. So let us know. You can email me, Jamie Latipo. What would you like created for you so that you can make the most of Ivy Live and connect what we're doing nationally to what's happening personally on the local level. And lastly, if you want to workshop this with me, you're welcome to come to my office hours every Monday from 5 to 6:30 Eastern or 2 to 3:30 Pacific. Thanks so much, everyone, and good luck.